Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Friday. It's January 16th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and it was another great trading day. Um, it really was all uphill since early overnight. We kind of sold off from yesterday afternoon's sell-off. We dropped a little bit more in the overnight, and then it started rallying, and when you can see it was all uphill today. Really nice move from 1970 all the way to 2014. I mean, you know, that's almost a, you know, 50-point move. So, that's huge, 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 and you only got to get one or two of these good moves out of this to make good money. So, I marked the trades up through 2 o'clock today, but you only need a couple of them. It started out, it looked like a trading range day, and I had this line right in here somewhere or another, and my midline was a little bit further down, and we had two perfect tiers there, but as the day has gone on, I've adjusted those. I got so many lines on here you can't even grab the right line anymore. But even the way I have it now, if you move this one down here, I still think you got two measured tiers there, so you really ended up with the same thing, but the range just widened a little bit, or was a little wider in the end, but it didn't really matter. There was a bigger channel, the dark blue lines, and there's a smaller two-tiered channel that we were working on earlier. And notice we had to break the new high, and then we corrected in there and made a second leg up, and then corrected some more. And then we started another shorter term two-tiered channel in there. Um, Later in the day. But all it was we really had a bigger channel, and there's some channels within channels, uh, the smaller picture. So, I know my chart's a little confusing, but maybe when we back out, it won't look quite so. Um, but early on, I was working off this. Let's just move these out of the way. Early on, I was working off this two-tiered channel right in here. There's still a midline from the bigger channel, but you can see it, and there's shorter term ones in there as well. Um, but when we got this third bounce right here, this was right into the 7 o'clock, a little after 7 o'clock hour. Let me show you this. Notice how you get that little low and then a little higher low, and then there it is again, low, a little higher low. Um, that pattern is on here all day long, and it pretty much worked all day long. So just remember that pattern right there. That was the main reason I like this one. It bounces right off that trend line, and it gives you that little trap, and it turns up just like it did here, and like it did here. It really did it here on a bigger picture. And then it did it again here, and then it did it again here. Every time it hit that line, it did that. And so when you see it the third time, the odds are it's going to do the same thing it did last time, and it did. It shot up. It didn't go quite as high, uh, but we got the break of this short, excuse me, shorter term channel here, right here, and then we moved to a new high, and we corrected again, and we corrected back to the other side of this channel here. We ended up getting a break of it, and then I moved to a new high, and we corrected again, and then you find your new channel in there. But in the end, we had the bigger channel. So, uh, but you got that pattern right there, easy long. You get it again right here for the most part. Notice that double bottom, and then that little tick back, and look at that bullish bar. Look how bullish that bar is, and that's a double test of that support area. Notice how we pulled back there, and then we tried it once. We actually tried it twice, 3 times. This was more of an overlap, so even though it ticked one tick lower, um, it wasn't real important until it broke lower, and you got a nice move lower right there, and then it became more important. So 3 longs right there, and 2 of them would have given you runners that were just really nice runners. Um, then we got up here, and of course you had a break of this channel. the short-term one, and now you got a new high. And you can see we're finding strong resistance up here, and it made a double top, a failed break higher, a pullback, and it tested that area again and then turned down. This is real borderline of being a red one, but I made it green because you're usually better off to wait on the second entry, but sometimes you don't get that second entry. You did get one here. It's a lot lower, but notice how we shot right through that EMA. You pull back to the EMA, and it gives you a second entry short counting off this high. And again, it's right off that trend line if you drew it off those first few bars there. And then you're looking for a measured move like that one, and you get it plus another little push down, and then it rallies. And you've really got a double top here, and it makes a lower high, and you're looking for a retest of the low. We really hadn't had a break of this bigger channel, but I really was looking at this more like a trading range at this point. And with that big bearish bar, I like that to the downside. I really thought we were going to sell off then. We did sell off, but it ended up bouncing at this strong support again down here. And then notice that new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. There's a second entry short right there, but it wasn't a very good one. But when it tried to go higher again and then turn down, that's a failed second entry long. And so that's why I like that one to the short side. I really wanted to go long here, but we never got the setup. But when we got that trap in that big bearish bar, I was thinking range day. I was already kind of thinking that, but I really was thinking it then. And it just continued to go lower until you got that bounce here. And that was the first break of this bigger two-tier channel. So at some point, you're probably going to get a little trap and go higher. But notice this strong support where we bounced multiple times before. It acted as resistance here, and then it acted support, and then it comes back, and where does it bounce? A real aggressive trader would probably take a long there because you got the break of this channel working down right here, and you got two measured legs, and that's another thing. When you're looking for your targets, you would have been looking for something like that right there. And notice we didn't get that. It held at that support, so that tells you something too. If you don't get there and then you get a reversal type pattern at a strong support or resistance, then it usually means you're going to go much higher in the other direction. So, but we got that little failed break lower, so you might have even gone long right there. It's a little aggressive. I didn't mark it. I think you're better off to wait because you do have this other trend line down here, and that's another thing. Since I didn't put that back on there, you can see we're bouncing off that twice as well. So that gives you even more. That's what I call confluence when you get two or more strong support or resistance areas that intertwine with each other, or dissect each other, or intersect each other, however you want to say that. That's what I call confluence, and that just gives you even more incentive that it's probably going to hold right there because you've got that strong support resistance, and then you got this strong support right here. So you got double support holding you right there, and it bounced off of it both times. And that's your second entry long. And look at it go. It pulls back, and then you get a little two-legged correction. I don't like that signal bar, even though that's a second entry long. Notice that new high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. But you got this little trend working up through here. It bounces right off that trend line. On a bigger picture, there's a new low there, first entry, pull back second entry. So it's almost the same. It is the same thing as a failed second entry short on a little bigger picture. So I liked it, and look how it just took off. I did mark it green though because it's not the best setup, and unless you're really skilled at watching the price action, you may not notice that. If you did see it, good job. It's there. So just like right here, notice this leg move, pull back. That's a move up, pull back, and then a second move up. And notice that little one tick lower and it went higher. So that's kind of like a second entry. That's kind of like this same, and again, this is that same pattern as here, here, here. So you just saw that pattern one more time right here, and this even looks a lot like it here. Um, so different reasons to enter there, and that looks very similar there as well. I didn't mark that one because you got a double bottom there, and this is the strong resistance. There's not a lot of room between here and there, so you got to be real careful entering in here. And anytime you got a short setup, you were so close to the support area. Anytime you got a long setup, you were so close here. You got to wait on that little failed break. And finally, you get it right here, and then look at that little bullish bar. It lets you get in right at the low. That gives you plenty of room to get out before here, and it just takes off. And that's usually what happens on those little traps. And you'll hear me talk about those a lot. Uh, Prices will fail out the bottom of a support or a trading range, and it works out. It works the same. Sometimes it'll fail out the top. Notice how it failed out here, but the trend is up. So they tend to work better to the when they fail out the bottom and prices are going to work higher. So, but you'll see it both ways. And then we got off the. This is the midline of the bigger channel. We put that back in place now too. But we're still working off the new shorter term channel here at this point, and that's why we turned down there before we got to the upper side. And notice that this line here, it touched that line and turned down, and that was the original two-tiered channel from earlier in the morning. So this stuff all comes back into play, these lines. So you got to pay attention to them. And this was really just a trading range. And look how flat the EMA is. So just not really, there's a second entry long here. Notice the new high pullback first entry. You really get the second entry trigger right there, but you don't want to go long there. And then you get another chance down here, and that gives you two measured moves really. But and there's that little, I didn't even notice that till now, but there's that little pattern again, and I missed it earlier. So I'm going to circle that one now that I see the pattern. And you see it didn't get a whole lot, but it got enough for the scalp. And every time you see that pattern, and then guess what? It hits this line right here. And guess what? There's that little pattern again. It starts up, pulls back, and ticks a tick lower and takes off again. So that's why, even though that's a red bar, we've seen that pattern so many times today that it'll make your head spin. So, and it's worked every single time I've seen it here. Here's another one. This is similar. That's a little bitty signal bar. It broke lower, turned, and went out the high side. Just go with it. It did pull back again, but notice how it's bounced off that original trend line twice there. And then this is the third time. That's like the double test rule. Just go long there, and you get another great move up. And then you get two legs back. So that's a second entry long. It is a big move, and we did go through the EMA, and we did get back below the midline here. So you would think we'd probably work back down to this line. But that is the first break of the trend that started from right here that's more shorter term. See the upper line, the lower line, and the midline in there. I know it's probably hard to see, but that's the first break of that one. So it shouldn't surprise you that we try to go higher again. And a real aggressive trader is going to take that second entry after two big measured legs down like that, because you're probably going to get two legs up. And look, one leg pull back, a second leg up, and then you get another correction of two legs, and then, you know, same old thing you just always see, two legs, two legs, two legs, two legs. So my throat's a little scratchy today, so you have to excuse me. But then you get a second entry long there. This one, I marked it blue because we're looking for a new high. It was the first break of that two-tiered channel there. It is bouncing off the midline. There's that confluence again. There's some different reasons to like that one. And it did give you enough for a scalp before it pulled back again. And then this is a bigger two legs. You got to move down. That accounts for a leg, and there's a little two-legged correction in there, and then another move down. And then that little trap. And there's that trap again. Let me move that so you can see it. Notice how it started. It goes down and then it turns up, and look how bullish that bar is. So another good setup. And then a failed second entry short right there to give you a chance to go long. And then there's two legs back again. Notice that new high pullback, first entry pullback, second entry, and it's right off that midline again, the bigger, the big picture midline, and that's where it was right there. And look at it go, boom. Great move, and that went right into the 2 o'clock hour, and we closed almost on the high of the day. So a really good trading day. I mean, it's just been a great couple of weeks here to the new year. Let's hope it stays this way because there's so much movement that even if you make a mistake in here, it's easy to make it back with the big moves and things. So it's just really good. Um, it's a really good trading environment right now in the ES, and this is and it used to be like this more often. It got to where for the last year or so that it was really choppy and slow, and but that's not necessarily bad because it gets predictable and people don't lose as much money because what happens on days like this, if you get caught short and you're not smart enough, and you're not one of those kind that you keep hanging on hoping it's going to come back. I mean, 50 points it can move against you and you're wiped out in one day. So that's the negative of a big move like this. But that's where you got somebody actually sent me an email asking me that question today. Said that they've really gotten good at reading the price chart, but they still make these little dumb mistakes and make mental errors, and they'll trade, have 10 or 15, and I was the world's worst at this. And I still fight this today because I don't want to admit I'm wrong, but when I start getting a long winning streak, I get more nervous than ever because you start to get kind of cocky and you start to think that you're invincible and your trading gets a little sloppy, and next thing you know, you say, well, I can't, I'm right so much, I'm just going to take this trade, and then suddenly you're wrong, and you don't want to admit you're wrong, and you watch it go against you, and you'll let one loss take back 5, 10, 15, 20 scalps. It doesn't take but when you're scalping for 4 ticks, it doesn't take a huge loss. So that's where you got to have the mental fortitude to say, hey, I've got to exit, even though I think I'm right here and it's probably going to come back. I cannot risk that because if I'm wrong, I'm going to get burned. And it's not easy, I know, because that is the struggle that I have as well. I'm pretty good at picking the winners, and I mean I've had some incredible win streaks, and I tell people they won't even believe me, but it's true. I mean I've had huge winning streaks where I'll win so many in a row and don't have any losers at all. But I don't like that. I like to, believe it or not, I prefer to have a loser in there every now and then to keep me grounded so that I don't get distracted. Now, I mean, it's probably self-inflicting. You start having a big winning streak, and you're probably thinking, I got to lose, and you probably self-inflict some wounds there. At least I think I do sometimes. Um, so I still work on that same problem too. But just back to the main point is, when you're wrong, don't. A lot of times you'll hang on and you'll enter too early or something, and you're right, and you'll hang on and it'll come back and you'll get rewarded, and and you may 5 times out of 6 or 9 times out of 10 you may get that right, and then all you need is once though to be wrong and to keep hanging on and hanging on. Like today, if you got caught short down here and you hung on, you lost a boatload of money, and you can't scalp and take losses like that. If you're going to be a scalper for the most part, you got to keep your losses small, just like your scalps, are small. So the runners really help if you're using runners, but if you're not using runners yet, then you don't have those to offset any bigger losses. So you got to be wise. You got to have that mental fortitude to say, hey, I'm wrong. I'm not moving my stop. I'm not giving any extra room, and you exit. So the only other thing I failed to talk about today was this area right here. This was right into that resistance, and so you just don't want to be going long right in there, even though there's a couple of long setups. I may have already talked about this, but it seems like I didn't mention why I had that circled. But you can't go long right into that high, so you got to wait. There's a possible entry right there. And that was really before you knew for sure it was kind of a range there. But the best ones are those little failed break lowers like that right there. And look at that move up. They trapped everybody short. They ran all the longs out, and they took it up for the next leg. and you probably want to be thinking we might get a leg just like that, and it didn't quite get there. So then you had a bigger correction too that followed it. So, uh, but anyway, that's pretty much it for today. Like I said, it's been a great couple of weeks. Great week this week, and I've been done with my trading early almost every day. And there was one day I traded later into the day when we had one of those big moves. But I generally get my money and go. And if it's really moving well, I usually will surpass my goal because I may have a runner that gets me a little extra, and I may ride that runner till it gets stopped out or it hits my target or whatever. Um, and so that might keep me in a little bit longer. But I still, for the most part, adhere to the rules of coming in, making my daily goal, and then leaving. But if you're not really as good with the range type days and the and you're really good at the trend days, when you get a good trend day, you probably want to stay with it then. But I usually don't, but that's okay. That's just me. You do what's comfortable for you, and if you're having a good day, maybe you should keep trading. But I can't tell you how many times I've been having a good day, and I press my luck, and I wish I hadn't have. So it's a double-edged sword, and if you catch the right side of it, that's great. But if you catch the wrong side, it'll slice your neck open for you, and you'll bleed to death. I promise you. So um, anyway, not probably the um, best example of trading. Talking about bleeding to death, but it does. If the shoe fits, wear it. So I'll leave it at that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.